The stakes are higher than they've ever been.
What the hell happens when evil finally arrives and confronts the traveler?
Systems are late. With 80% of defenses now operational. I'm full of fury, she's got an army, and you got magic green strings. Let's crush this callous guy.
Even when that passion is being expressed as like anger or frustration, anger, we eventually learn, like anger is not the opposite of loving a game. Anger is like 2 degrees off from loving a game, and they both come from passion, from people who are highly engaged with what you're making. And the opposite of loving a game, the thing that could kill you, is apathy. And that's so much more scary than anger.
I hope you sold your Destiny stocks while they were high, because the Destiny 2 Lightfall expansion has somehow found new ways to reinvent how bad its story can be. As we creep up to the 10-year anniversary of this franchise, I am in shock that Bungie tripped this hard so close to the finish line. Most of the campaign had my face scrunched up in a ball exactly like this. To sandbag the narrative as hard as they have here is shocking, given the direction things were headed with Witch Queen and some of the seasonal stories. But ultimately, I guess the definition of insanity is playing Destiny over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, so let's talk about Destiny.
As Bungie continues to carve out aspects of the game to sell in awkward, overpriced chunks, like the 30th anniversary event, or the various a la carte dungeon keys, I made the vow to never waste my money on them outside of major expansions. Luckily for me, when Destiny 2 released on Epic Games, they were giving away the 30th anniversary pack for free, which after downloading and playing for a little bit made me say, wow, I'm glad this was free. In my Witch Queen video, I mentioned that I didn't really experiment much with the seasonal content, as I didn't quite realize how much it seemed like they were doing in terms of smaller bite-sized stories, subclass redesigns, and various systems. In preparation for this video, I played a slice of Season 18 and the entirety of Season 19's main and exotic quest.
We are running out of time.
And all of Season 20. You quickly realize that the overall seasonal design is pretty simple and repetitive, and up until recently it was reliant on a bunch of random new currencies like most activity in Destiny. There's always a time-gated campaign quest that staggers you with each weekly reset, and there's always a seasonal activity thrown into the mix. These vary in quality, with the pirate-themed Catch Crash and Treasure Hunt being fun to run once or twice, but lose their muster extremely quickly with how linear and uninteresting the minimal weekly tweaks and reused bosses we've seen thousands of times before. Season 19, directly leading into and setting up Lightfall, was actually quite a pleasant experience for me.
Crude, incomplete shell. Still, I must admit that its storage capacity vastly exceeds that of a standard exoframe. It will have to do for now.
I started fairly late, 2 or 3 weeks before Lightfall released, so I could rocket through the main story quest without having to wait until the next weekly reset. It is fairly irritating how they often require you to run the seasonal activity a bunch of times to slow down progress, but overall I found this season to be surprisingly effective and varied. I don't know if my expectations were just quite low. Even bringing back locations from Destiny 1 for a brief moment. Ooh, nostalgia, there we are. Or a particularly standout final mission set on the Deep Stone Crypt raid. Something I previously mentioned I wanted more of since they used the raid boss from Forsaken as part of the Witch Queen campaign. It seems to me like seasonal content should really be the home of smart content reuse, with the bigger expansions being where they add the truly new environments and enemies. Not that it always works out like that. While the plot and dialogue isn't anything special, especially the clunky delivery of it, it was nice to see the Rasputin story come to a close. The Braytech tunnels and old overgrown bunkers have always been one of the best aesthetics and locations in Destiny, and with the seasonal battleground activity relying on these visuals combined with environmental risk factors such as these threat detector towers that instantly kill you if you're not in cover, it kept kept things just varied enough for me to carry the story. It was interesting to see the horrible story of Beyond Light get wrapped up here. It kinda seemed like they needed an excuse to remove the Rasputin character from the picture because of how powerful it was, and they need to be vulnerable for the Witness invasion to mean anything. The most eventful cutscene was the closer to Season 19. Showing the Traveler abandoning Earth and hovering outside its atmosphere. This is a crucial moment that has been foreshadowed and teased for years, and quite frankly, this 4-minute cutscene is more of a complete story than the expansion it teases. I still don't fully understand the overall implications or consequences, but that was supposed to be the job of the Lightfall expansion to explain. The problem with this seasonal model is that it seems like it's halted overall production in favor of quick-hit content that mostly isn't designed to be revisited and replayed. If each season was adding a strike or two with some PvP and Gambit maps, it would be reasonable to assume that the overall content package would only grow and enrich the scope with time. But this FOMO season model, yet again, traps Bungie into an ultra-restrictive content pattern and greatly damages onboarding and accessibility. If I could trade the seasonal structure for a significantly more robust catalogue of core activities to enjoy, I probably would. Right, enough teasing, let's talk about the main event.
Because only in the end are we free.
Now that a bit of time has passed, it is safe to say that the Lightfall expansion is quite easily the most embarrassing release this game has ever had the gall to charge money for. It might sound hyperbolic, but that's kind of my thing, and also hear me out. I was so positive in my Witch Queen review, probably too positive. It felt as if they'd finally figured out a way to deliver a solid, varied, and well-designed campaign at the forefront of the expansion package that redefined the replay value, challenge, and mission design expectations from what came before it. But that did come with a hell of a lot of caveats. This was the first good campaign in the entire Destiny franchise, nearly 8 years since its original release, and the 6th major expansion for Destiny 2 alone. There was a sense of confidence that perhaps all this time being paying beta users near the end of the supposed 10-year plan, that finally things were starting to come together. That with all these disparate setups, threads, and failures, maybe it was time for Destiny to go out on a high, or at the very least, a consistent level that could deliver quality on par with what came before. When Bungie first revealed the marketing logo for this expansion, it definitely conjured a specific style and mood. The implication of the word Lightfall alone implies something dire. The lack of color and the central imposing pyramid carried with it a tonal promise. That we're getting towards the end now, the stakes are being raised, and the endless teasers were all somehow building to this moment, the beginning of the end. The Empire, or Avengers Infinity War penultimate dark chapter, the rising action right before the satisfying blowout ending that brings it all together. Then, in August 2022, the official reveal trailer dropped and I was immediately confused. An 80s-inspired, droning synth neon color palette with a reused boss enemy from vanilla Destiny 2's Raid, and a reskinned Cabal looking to be the main threat. Again. Even more distressing than that though was the entire premise of this new location. The rundown post-apocalyptic fantasy sci-fi fusion was almost entirely gone, going as far as to establish an entirely new race of gigantic humanoids that aren't guardians, but harness some other kind of boring nanotech or powers we haven't seen before. Up until this point, the one thing I've consistently praised every single expansion in this franchise for is the environmental art, color usage, music, and overall presentation. To me, outside of the minute-to-minute gameplay feel, this was the central quality that always gave me something to enjoy, even if everything else was letting me down.
We were created for this moment, to deal with this conflict.
The more they showed, the more confusing and weird it looked, simultaneously advertising this as if it was going to be a huge event in the Destiny universe that's going to fundamentally change everything and answer aching questions, but also promising a goofier, campy 80s tone and setting.
The color, the graphic design, the vibrancy, and yeah, there's some mysteries in there.
The cool thing about Neomuna is that it's like this big neon-soaked city, but it has quite a spectrum of different environments.
I think my favorite absolutely is the Thrillodrome. It is an arcade Lost Sector, and I think we can relate to spending our days in a sticky arcade playing games with our buddies.
I'm also so excited for people to see the puka pond with all of the pukas that have been like such a mystery since Beyond Light.
It's typical that I spent an entire chunk of the last video drooling over the art direction and color theory and research they put into crafting this universe, then in their penultimate expansion dissolve the one quality that was actually consistent about this mess of a franchise. The 80s jerk-off has got to stop. It was already kind of old when the fun and silly Far Cry Blood Dragon came out at the height of synthwave and the resurgence of the 80s aesthetic that pervaded the 2010s. It's not that there's anything inherently wrong with this aesthetic per se, it's the implementation into this already established visual language and setting that bothers me. It's not like they'd exhausted every possible option, every biome ever. All you have to do is look at concept art and contrast it with the horrible neon of Neomuna to see the disconnect. Oh. Hang on. Let's rein this in slightly. I've got a lot to say about this expansion, so without this video becoming as scattershot and nonsensical as this joke of a story, let's take a step back and focus on the campaign and its plot specifically.
Once thought to be a force known as the Darkness, the Witness revealed itself to be an entity that instead wields the darkness against us. It spoke through our ghosts and offered us salvation if we submitted to it. We refused. Though we do not know its true intentions, we can only assume it seeks to finish what it started during our collapse.
After the events of Witch Queen and the Osiris character returning, it was revealed that Savathûn somehow passed on her knowledge of a way to stop the Witness with something she hid on the planet Neptune. The story opens on a space battle above Earth, highlighting the Witness's ability to control the pyramid ships and kill ghosts with a flick of the wrist. The Traveler fires some kind of energy beam into the Witness's pyramid, causing a crazy-looking natural explosion of veins of some kind of plant matter. The Witness traverses the beam as the Vanguard watches in horror, arranging the pyramids in a pattern around the Traveler, and starts cutting into it before it's interrupted by a vision. This leads to the Witness contacting Callus and commanding him to do what must be done. Osiris reacts by shouting, "They found the veil!" Wouldn't it be weird if they just didn't explain any of this? Osiris chases after Callus and his fleet by himself, so I guess it's our job to help Osiris reach the veil and sort this mess. The first mission is standard Destiny affair. You work your way through the Cabal ship interior, a network of similar tunnels and passageways with various locked doors that require working through a simple keycard mechanic.
If the Witness establishes a link with a veil, it'll be over for the entire system. All of our losses would have been for naught. We've never faced a threat of this magnitude. Even if you stayed, you wouldn't have stood a chance against the Witness. None of us would.
The way the dialogue and marketing has to do all the heavy lifting in this story is more and more laughable the longer this franchise goes on. It's like none of the story or imagery can speak for itself, because often it can't speak for itself. You're simply not given the information to properly engage with what is happening. You have to verbally state this as a new magnitude of threat we've never faced before, despite you spending the majority of the campaign killing hordes of the same enemy faction that have been around since 2014. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. Wow, okay, a new enemy design, color me impressed. At first I was excited and assumed this expansion would be the first time Destiny added a new faction of enemies without some kind of caveat or reskin. Maybe they kept it under wraps, maybe it was a fun surprise for the fans. Outside of this one enemy type though, and the raid boss, there's nothing else new in this field. I'm starting to seriously doubt that this series will ever get a properly new Darkness faction with new mechanics, character models, and animations. Which is a shame because this new enemy is genuinely fun to fight, especially on the legendary difficulty. Similarly to the Hive Ghosts from Witch Queen, their design is based around forcing you to move around the arena to keep the combat tense, although kind of the inverse of the Hive Ghosts. Instead of having to get to the enemy to dispatch it with a finisher before it revives itself, these guys will chase after you and grab you if they get close enough. A much much more exciting dynamic that I wish there was more of. I don't know if it's the workload, the tech debt of this ancient engine, or the timetables to get all these concepts done, but this sandbox is desperately in need of a new enemy faction. Desperate. Not only is it a huge missed opportunity to keep things mechanically fresh and feel new, but if the final shape comes around and it's yet another reskin or reuse of already existing content, it would just be embarrassing. Is that really how you want to end this? I mean, it's expected at this point, but still embarrassing. I would argue that it's actually highly injured the Witness as a villainous force. For all the empty pyramids we've explored and reused enemies we've dispatched, there's a static feeling to all of this. Oryx from Destiny 1 at least brought in the Taken, which, yes, are reskins, but at least it was something a little more varied and was only the second year into the franchise before we knew how little would be added in this regard over time. I've often compared this series to Mass Effect because of its story similarities and the resemblance between the Reapers and the Pyramids in premise, but the second you start to compare, you notice just how pathetic and uninteresting the Pyramids are in contrast. Over the 6-year journey of the Mass Effect trilogy, you're blown away with the truly intimidating cosmic horror in the first game, with more and more gradual escalation until a full-blown invasion that you're trapped in the middle of by the start of the third game. Bungie themselves describe this expansion as if they want it to feel like a war zone.
Lightfall should feel like you have stepped into the middle of an active war.
But it simply doesn't. Again, we've only been told how scary and intimidating this fleet of pyramids are. We've never seen them actually do anything. Nothing impactful anyway. If the Witness isn't transporting an army, why does he even need a fleet of empty ships? In fact, him effectively having to hire Callus as a mercenary and borrow his troops makes the Witness even less intimidating. This Megamind Boobar guy, he's not leaving a great first impression, I've got to tell you. The only real standout portion of this level is when you're hopping around in space and Callus's enormous ship flies beneath you and gives you a great sense of scale, something Destiny's always been quite good about.
Okay, here's the plan. Destroy the engine.
Of this ship, the one we're on.
Crazy or not, we need to stop this invasion. I'll do whatever it takes to stop the Witness. So if you aren't going to help me, then leave me alone.
I think calling the expansion that introduced Osiris the Curse of Osiris is a fitting name, because this character is a curse. You get it? He's unlikable, irritating, and instead of the writing coming across like he's desperate and manic to win the day in an endearing or exciting way, it more feels like he's just a whiny asshole. Then there's the whole aspect of his story that happened off screen, where his ghost was killed so now he can't be revived, which is supposed to also enhance the tension. I assume this was shown in some way in a seasonal story that I might have missed, but it turns out all of it happened off screen. Nice.
Hurry up!
Are those things safe?
Can't be that.
You hop into a Cabal launch pod, and I started getting kind of excited. I thought this might be a throwback or ode to the extremely memorable introduction to Bungie's old release, Halo 3 ODST.
Reports Covenant troops are massing beneath the carrier.
They're pulling back? Why?
You're not gonna find out way up here.
Troopers! We are green and very, very mean!
Oh man, look at how vibrant and energetic this is. Amazing music, sound design, and voice acting. And what a great, lonely way to introduce you to a new environment. Let's compare with how it goes down in Lightfall.
Here goes nothing. This is Neptune?
This was so rushed. Couldn't even get an establishing shot. Even vanilla Destiny did that when you went to a new location. Welcome to Neomuna, the worst location in all of Destiny. A small section of an empty neon city with little environmental storytelling, sights to see, or places to explore. At least ODST sold the idea of a war-torn abandoned city and leaned into it, establishing a strong atmosphere with plenty to explore, audio logs to find, and teases to this horrible franchise.
There's a whole city here. An entire civilization. I've got a ping on Osiris's coordinates. Let's find him.
You on the road. Identify yourself. Are you with the invaders?
We're Guardians, from the last city.
Light bearers.
We're fighting the same enemy. We're here to find something called the Veil.
Nimbus and I are a little pinned down right now, but we'll be there soon. Stay frosty, Tyrion.
You clear a bunch of Shadow Legion from the city streets and wind up by a strange energy source.
Osiris, I'm detecting an anomaly on my sensors. We'll check it out while the coast is clear.
Understood. Patiently note that it is quite confined in here.
So this is the subclass Social Strand. Without this new set of mechanics, I likely would have given up playing this altogether, but luckily it does feel very satisfying to play. Especially as a Titan matched with the exotic boots you get for completing the legendary campaign, you're able to BDSM enemies and trap them for a generous amount of time. The Titan melee has quirky tracking, but they kinda make up for it by giving you multiple uses of charge. Most of the advertising was hyping up this grapple hook, making out that you could Spider-Man swing your way around the city. And you can, to a certain degree, especially if you're willing to dedicate your build towards its recharge speed, but honestly I was more often using the BDSM grenade with how ridiculously powerful it is. This whole strand system is kind of the real story of this campaign, much like how the awful Beyond Light campaign was effectively an extended tutorial for stasis. The majority of this campaign is dedicated to mastering the social strands. Fun. Now, if I put my spinful hat on for a moment, there's a fairly convincing theory that this subclass was originally intended to ship with the Witch Queen, partially explaining those segments where you need to harness Deep Sight. Perhaps it would have made more sense for Strand to be linked to Savathun, with her entire gimmick being threads and messing with silkworms. The Hunter is literally called Thread Runner.
So we have the Hunter Thread Runner.
And the Warlock Broodweaver.
The Warlock Broodweaver.
It's the most hive-sounding stuff I've ever heard. So it seems like at some point in the Destiny 2 roadmap, there was a plan for 3 expansions, each with a new Darkness subclass. Something happened with the development, which meant they needed more time, so what was originally the concept of Lightfall suddenly materialized as the final shape.
A side should always be taken. Even if it's the wrong side.
We are building Destiny's future today, right inside of Destiny 2. It starts with Beyond Light coming this fall.
It's going to continue with the next major expansion, the Witch Queen, and Lightfall is going to kind of drive this all to a moment.
This 10-year journey we've been on since Destiny 1, it's drawing to its dramatic conclusion. The Light and Darkness saga will end. But make no mistake, Destiny 2 will not. We're building not so much to an ending, but more to this transformative moment for Destiny 2's future.
Last year, we announced the Witch Queen and the following expansion, Lightfall.
And now we're excited to announce the release after Lightfall, the final chapter in the Light and Darkness saga, Destiny 2, the final shape. It's going to be one wild, continuous ride.
Yes!
Leaving the Lightfall we did end up getting to be a desperate scramble to fill an expansion so they had more time to work on the real ending, which if I had to put money down would probably be at least to the quality of the Witch Queen, at least you would hope, right? But man, there is something so insulting about the positioning of this expansion, advertising one thing, delivering another.
The big question has been, what does it want with the Traveler? What will happen when it finds it? And in Lightfall, it does find it.
Banking on their frantically always moving, consumer-unfriendly business model and fan Stockholm syndrome to release totally subpar content and rely on the promises of the future to hold everyone over until then. But I'm here now, and I just paid a lot of money for something that isn't what you said it is. That sucks. I could die before I see the end of this. Normally in a situation this dire, you'd just delay it, but the live service business model insists on constant movement no matter the quality. This comes from a company culture that is so out of whack, a culture that considers the regular business model of releasing a game like Elden Ring as over-delivering instead of the gold standard.
Because it's hard to tell a team that has extra cycles and they have energy and they want to do something amazing and they know how to do it. And it totally would be amazing and awesome for the game. Sometimes we have to tell them, like, we shouldn't ship this because it's an over delivery that is going to set us up for failure on future trains.
An extremely weird self-admittance of their commitment to the race to the bottom. But who on earth is this actually serving aside from them? All you have to do is watch the insane 2022 GDC conference, where the Destiny 2 general manager explains in simple terms the company's attitude towards quality. They effectively don't care about it because they learned that it literally doesn't matter to their business.
Then what is the service approach and mindset by contrast? And more than anything else, being a service is about being fast. For a live service, more than anything, more important even than quality, a live service is about being fast.
In their own words, they prioritize engagement and velocity. This makes it a great expression of a business model, but not a very good artistic one. As you continue your way through Night City with your new social strand abilities, you reach a point where your body can't handle that much power.
Your body can't handle this much power.
But don't you worry, something extremely cool is about to happen. Nimbus. Why do you want me to hate this? Right, so before I even begin on these radical, gnarly, totally firing Cloudstrider dudes, I don't know why I get so many performance issues with this game on PC, outside of its widely documented issues I've talked about before, but this awful cutscene froze right as Nimbus was about to get eviscerated by a scythe, which not only got my hopes up, but weirdly the game wasn't actually frozen, as I could still access my gear menu and could only proceed when I skipped the frozen cutscene. It's almost like the game was trying to save me. I played through this campaign twice, and this happened here both times. Don't worry though, I found the scene on YouTube and we can watch it in full together. Let's see what I missed.
Welcome to Neomuna. On your face! Hey! I had that one!
You work fast.
We don't like to waste time.
Oh, good. There isn't a moment to lose.
We regroup at the watchtower.
You don't understand. We've got to get to the Veil.
I understand what's at stake, Lightbearer. Far better than you. Not all of us have lives to spare.
Did you like that? I liked that. Can't believe I'm admitting this, but I genuinely thought, the naive dreamer that I am, for sure, that they were going to pull the rug from under us and reveal that these Neomunian people were actually somehow agents of the Witness, and perhaps that would be a fun way to introduce a new type of enemy to fight. Because without this being a ruse, the amount of questions this raises is almost never ending. So you're telling me this whole time there's been a hidden planet of hyper-advanced humans that not only avoided the apocalypse, but have used technology to ascend into gigantic dude bros who fly around on surfboards.
I'm Nimbus. I'm the rookie Cloudstrider here in Neomuna.
But there can only be 2 of them at a time because the backwards engine can't render anything more dense. So the rest of the civilization conveniently lives in digitized networks, so they can manifest as blue ghosts, which are easier to render in-game. You can't even make it up at this point. You can't. With just a couple of tweaks, you could make this location so much less ridiculous. Take the exact same city, destroy it, and make it run down like the rest of Destiny, leave some of that mystery intact, completely abandon the intensely cringy idea of the Cloudstriders, fill the abandoned city with giant moth monsters, and instead of centering the story around the worst character in this entire franchise, perhaps give a larger role to Keitel, the daughter of the main antagonist of this expansion. This is the absolute worst time to introduce so many new characters and concepts into the universe. The fact there are already so many Guardians kind of inherently dissolves some of your individual importance, but now these superhumans meet us, instantly turn out to be chill guys who trust us without question, and we act as if this is all accepted and normal. Like, isn't this a huge deal to this universe and has massive implications?
Neomuna has existed for hundreds of years. It branched off from Earth during our collapse and shut off any communication. So they've been secretly existing on Neptune for a very long time and keeping themselves safe.
Why couldn't they just wait? Why couldn't they wait and play around with dumb, lame concepts like this once the Light and Dark saga was over? A lot of choices in Destiny have confused me in the past, millions of them. But at least it always still felt like Destiny. If you showed someone a picture of a Cloud Strider, never in a million years would they guess it was a character from Destiny. Take a look at this. This would be quite a cool Cloud Strider, wouldn't it? Maybe even this. Perhaps even these. This is all unused Destiny concept art that would be much more fitting in this universe. My point is, this is such a departure from the expected art design, and even on its own is a visually noisy mess of angles, flesh, and random shapes. What on earth were they thinking with this? I would be very shocked if Bungie doesn't quietly shift away from the Neomuna angle of this universe.
Delicious power. I should be grateful that such power has come to live in me.
So another bait and switch to this expansion is this random raid boss coming back and having a tense relationship with the Witness and whatever it's doing. These mustache-twirling Cabal characters are so uninteresting and feed straight into the expected villain of the week the majority of bad guys in the Destiny universe fall under. Even the cringy mole rats from vanilla Destiny 2 have more development and moments than this guy.
The veil is before us.
With another mention of this veil thing, clearly the major MacGuffin of this expansion, I can't wait to find out what it is. Wouldn't it just be completely insane if they never addressed what this thing is? Callus mentions that the Neptunians don't pose a threat with their tawdry or cheap and or poor quality technology.
The Neptunians won't pose much of a threat with their tawdry technology.
Even though what we were just shown a few seconds ago were a couple of extremely capable superhuman warriors who seemed to have things quite under control, actually. Even made little jokes.
Welcome to Neomuna!
Imagine if the Neptunians were a secret enclave of more primitive and vulnerable people who were only just scraping by, instead of a hyper-advanced civilization that can do anything, digitize people, put them in a network. Maybe at least then there would have been a drop of tension instead of none.
Looking good, pal.
Oh my god. Unfortunately, knowing how Bungie historically structured and delivered the story in Destiny, the simple fact that Nimbus is the main vendor all but confirms that they'll be a completely static and unmoving character, so get used to their annoying presence. You know, I guess the one thing missing from this franchise was their own Jar Jar. Now there's an over-delivery for you.
Now, you know the Veil's in danger. I know where those big guys are headed. So let's go do some hero stuff.
Time for the Under Siege mission. You pick up a few corrupted keycards, then defeat 3 waves of enemies while your ghost hacks something.
The closer we get, the more I feel strange. Ugh, something is wrong. I feel drained. Some of our powers are gone. What is this device?
I was kind of hoping that the design would incorporate a type of restricted gameplay that would limit certain abilities in order to craft a fun gameplay challenge to overcome, but it's not really implemented that way outside of it blocking your usual super for a bit. You fight a boring boss in an equally boring environment, and the level's over.
That's a lot of Shadow Legion.
Is it?
We're too late. They've got the Veil.
What? What is it? So somehow when the Witness talks to Callus, your ghost projects the message so you can also see it. Luckily, this is all fun and games to Nimbus, who lightheartedly describes this conflict as fun, and diffuses any possible stakes with the casually written bro dialogue that's desperate to make you like them.
You've been dealing with this whole Witness thing a lot longer than we have. It's okay if we lean back and try a little trust fall. Well, if you drop us, it might be my funeral, but whatever, it'll be fun.
Okay, so at this point in the story, we have the Veil, the Radial Mast, the Cloud Arc, the Neo Mooney. It's honestly complete nonsense. Explain the proper nouns, please.
You know the Veil's
The Veil.
Need to get to the Veil.
The Veil. Have the Veil.
power the Veil has from the Veil.
They've got the Veil. The Veil?
The Veil's safe.
Reaches the Veil.
We want to protect the Veil.
You're almost at the Veil.
This is ridiculous. From the visual design, voice acting, art, and corresponding location, contrasting this with the characters in The Witch Queen it's embarrassing. It's utter whiplash, and I'm still confused as to how this was approved to be added to the game. For no reason, they put mission start flags on places on the map that you have to traverse to, probably to bump up playtime or try and distract you. But next up is the Downfall mission.
Lightbearer, you have a dangerous mission ahead of you. Storming Callus's stronghold won't be easy.
So I guess we have to destroy this radial mast thing now for reasons. Now the dialogue has definitely never been a strong point in this franchise, but just about every line in this expansion is the same 2 or 3 sentences repeated over and over again, like a monkey with a miniature cymbal. Veil this, radial mast that. In fact, this reliance on MacGuffins is so bad that it even sent the most hardcore Destiny players into a frenzied angst. How is it even possible that My Name is Bife, the biggest Destiny lore channel on YouTube, was able to make a 42-minute long video purely speculating what the Veil could even be? And not even in a fun way. People are pissed about this. Oh, sorry, I guess I spoiled the reveal that there is no Veil reveal. In fact, the backlash to this was so bad that Bungie promised to patch in a Veil explanation in Season 21, which didn't release until June 2023, and mostly consisted of uninteresting audio logs that still keep most of what's happening extremely vague. Then, believe it or not, in the 5th week of the Season of the Deep story mission, which involves you completing a random lost sector on Savathun's ship, almost 4 months after the release of Lightfall, Bungie dropped a 4-minute long exposition dump cutscene that gave a little more context as to what the motivation of the Witness and the Traveler actually is. It turns out that the Witness is actually an amalgamation of an ancient planet of aliens who found the Traveler themselves and used it to reach their own equivalent golden age. Although without guidance and meaning, they reached the conclusion that they needed to look to the stars in order to find the answers to control the light powers of the Traveler and grapple with the open-endedness and chaos of the universe, which led their scholars to discovering the Veil, which maintains some kind of cosmic connection to the Traveler and showed them the potential power of the darkness. This darkness gave them more of a distinct purpose with how they were able to wield and manipulate it, somehow moving the Veil in direct contact with the Traveler in an attempt to reshape reality itself. The Traveler protested and fled. The aliens used the darkness to combine themselves into one all-powerful entity, an entire planet's consciousness squished into one person, and they started the search, explaining the intent behind the Pyramid Fleet that has been teased since vanilla Destiny 2. They've been looking for the Traveler and they finally arrived and found it. This is single-handedly the most important lore cutscene in all of Destiny 2, and it isn't even included in the Lightfall expansion. This brings up a hell of a lot of problems and questions, but let's break this down. First off, this is admittedly an interesting cutscene. It's far more of a story than anything in the actual Lightfall campaign. It poses broad cosmic ideas about the search for purpose and meaning, and the time-lapse of the visuals is beautifully put together. However, big however though, I don't understand why this was not included in the Lightfall campaign when you reach the Veil, and you literally stumble across some old archives and databases. The other detail this cutscene undoes is diffuse any tension or meaning to the Pyramid invasion, so I guess they literally are just empty ships that don't do anything. They aren't carrying troops, there's only one Witness character, so I guess that means a new enemy faction is out of the picture. What a mind-blowing, what an amazing anticlimax. How did we not see this coming? Of course there was nothing to this. Of course. Outside of this imagery being established from concept art years and years ago.
And of course, a good game needs giant onyx pyramid ships. But that's a really cool image, I love this one. But I'm not allowed to talk about those yet. Maybe someday down the road.
This is the ultimate payoff to this franchise. A pathetically squirted out cutscene randomly dropped in the 5th week of a season that you have to pay for separately from the campaign the Veil was established in. For a season which, by the way, was content complete and made at the same time as Lightfall. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but this is a new new low point for the storytelling in this franchise. This is ridiculous. I feel like I'm going insane with how backwards this is. This is the equivalent of if that great cutscene from the Witch Queen that explains the origin of the Hive was not included in that campaign, and was instead randomly shat out as a blotch cutscene in Season of the Haunted many months later at a point no one cares about. This is supposed to be the big bad of the entire franchise. All of that repair, all of that momentum and goodwill that has been meticulously built up over years, gone in an instant, in one expansion. And for what? So a giant underwater worm in a boring seasonal story could reveal these vague details and eradicate any notion of interest going forward. This all feels made up as it went along. There was no plan here. I had to go back and write this segment in as this happened right as I was finishing up my script, so apologies for this long tangent, but this game is such a mess that organizing this information in a reasonable order is just as much of a Goliath task as its delivery in the game proper. In a backwards way, this almost makes the final shape more interesting because there's basically no possible way to conclude this in a satisfying way with the ball being dropped this hard. This sucks, and it absolutely did not have to be this bad.
This is awful.
Sure is. You're losing valuable time. This is exactly what I was concerned about.
I think they were trying to use Osiris to accentuate the urgency of the mission with dialogue like this, but it mostly adds up to him being an irritating hater who always pesters you to be faster. God damn it, I'm trying my best, okay? I'm not used to the Warlock jump. They establish an extremely simple door unlock mechanic with these things you need to shoot at that feature in the raid, but never amount to much in the campaign. You reach this gravity lift that glitches out for me every time I use it.
The Shadow Legion must use this grav lift to move equipment and troops across the ship. It should take us deeper in. I still can't believe my sensors. Could the radial mast really be a light artifact?
There's still a great deal we don't know. What is the radial mass capable of? How will it affect the Veil? And what is the Witness planning?
I don't know if this is an engine glitch or a physics thing. I couldn't figure out if there was supposed to be some kind of mechanic to this. On my Titan, I managed to finagle my way through in a way that was definitely not intended.
What is the radial mass capable of? How will it affect the Veil? And what is the Witness planning?
With how glitchy and unreliable the physics are implemented in the raid, it's hard not to blame the game for buggy moments like this.
Fuck! Holy shit!
Refresh my internet over.
Burning light?
As much as I loathe her, I must apply.
Then I try it again and it suddenly jankily just sort of works. The game never used to be like this. Say what you want about Activision, but the game was extremely polished in comparison when they worked under them. You stand on a circle, move a thing, kill a tormentor, traverse deeper into the ship, and finally reach the radial mast, TM.
That monument must be the radial mast. There's no mistaking it. That's light energy radiating from it. Oh no.
At last you have arrived, God. Welcome to this fine cast of strength.
Destroying it consists of navigating a big circular arena, standing on a circle, and delivering dark resonance twice. Right when you think you're trapped, there's an attempt at a hero moment with Keitel coming to save you.
Guardian, your recklessness will be the end of you one day. But not today.
Followed by a Sparrow escape sequence where you drive in a straight line as it gets progressively darker.
We made it.
There's something deeply unpolished and uncool about the execution of this sequence, but at least it's something. You get a short cutscene with some context for the relationship between Callus and his daughter, but it's only a glimpse of what probably should have been the heart of this story.
I am contemplating your most recent outburst
with Strand to see if there are opportunities for improvement.
It was out of control. We did the best we could.
We need to do better!
What the hell is this guy's problem?
He must rein in his tempestuousness to hope to defeat Callus.
The absolute state of this dialogue. There's no actor that could save this mess.
Osiris and Rohan can go process their differences over some fermented tea or whatever. We're off to go protect the people of Neomuna.
I'm glad we're all taking this very seriously. Next up is the mission Breakneck. Before we start, I just want to highlight again the needless journey to even begin this mission. Let's travel there together. Watch this. Alright, here we go. Let's jump down here. Head over here, like. Can't get your sparrow out yet. Okay. Got this rooftop. Alright. Let's keep going. Oh, yep. Come down here. Yep. So this platform down here. Oh, here we go. Nice. Nice. Get a little trick in there. Yep. Let's make our way. Do a bit of driving. Yep. Nearly there. Right. Just go through a few of these corridors. Yep. There we are. You can see it in the distance there. Cool. Nearly there, guys. Just about there. Just got a few more bits to go through. Yep, let's ignore that for a second. Sorry guys, coming through. Oh, right, get a boost in there. Ah, here we are. Okay, I think we just about made it. Cool. Nice. What is the purpose of making me do this? That's a minute of game time for nothing. Is it just to justify the sparrows? It's so weird and pointless.
We need to be looking at the bigger picture. We want to protect the Veil. We first and foremost need to protect the Cloud Ark.
Oh. We kill a lot of Vex in hallways, like we've been doing for a decade. Is something going to happen, or...?
This station's power output is unbelievable. Earth was decades away from technology like this, even during the Golden Age.
The Cloud Ark needs a lot of juice. Like we said earlier, it supports all the Neomuni, the city's defenses, and also the Veil's defenses. That's it!
Power cycling. Once it's back on, it'll be running the Cloud Ark.
Something feels off here. That was a little too easy.
The best combat encounter in this level is this confined room where you're forced to take on 2 tormentors. One of the better moments on Legendary, where you have to react quickly and continue to move around the arena. The perfect level of challenge. Cool skybox, inconsequential level.
Darkness is something entirely apart from light. A paracausal union, conjoining intangible conscious realities. This curse of linking to...
You're talking about the River of Souls.
River?
Yeah, it's a story we tell kids on Neptune. You know, I think I know of a place where we can find some of that power.
I guess we're going to this Strand River then.
Everything that's come at us, you're just like, oh, bam, pew, ow. And suddenly whatever's coming at us ain't coming at us anymore.
Outside of this shambled together beauty, I consider Borderlands 3 to maybe have the worst writing I've ever experienced in a video game. For the small handful of hours I played it, I was forced to turn off the vocal track in order to find any enjoyment. There have been times in Destiny's past where it's veered into Borderlands territory, not where the dialogue is simply bad, but actually grating and irritating to hear. Be it cringy Cade 6 lines, the Marvelesque Finch from Witch Queen, or the over-the-top failsafe AI from Vanilla D2, but this is the first time a Destiny character would be right at home in the Borderlands 3 universe. I'm not even inherently against Destiny having a comedically toned expansion, but time and place, guys, good lord. Why would you destroy the serious tone that was brilliantly cemented in Witch Queen and the seasonal missions leading up to this for something like this? It is truly baffling. On the Verge is the next mission.
So, Nimbus, want to fill us in on where we're headed?
There's this place where Cloud Striders go. A place to be alone, meditate, pray.
So, exactly like Stasis before it, in order to trickle out the meager content and lock everything behind time-gated unlocks, for the entire campaign, each instance of Strand gameplay is limited to highly selective events you have no control over.
There, another Strand source.
Well, what are you waiting for? Let's begin.
It was a neat touch in The Taken King when you were handed a separate side mission you could do when you chose to, where you could go to retrieve your new super and abilities. So you could customize and experiment with the new options as you made your way through the campaign. This blue ball delivery is not only boring in comparison, but winds up being ridiculously repetitive the more times it happens. It's just not that interesting to trickle out for so long. Disable the Vex barrier with 3 balls, swing around a canyon, ending with the training grounds where this tutorial campaign can continue.
Whoa, this is... wow.
Again, you do some extremely simple platforming while carrying a ball around so you can beat a boring boss, and the level is over.
Guardian, listen. Don't strain for the energy. Drop the effort and just let it flow through you. Now that thing sends a Vex pack in. Nicely done.
Yes, that was a challenging fight, but you pulled through. Still, we cannot afford any faltering when facing Callus. We should be able to wield Strand without strain. We're still missing something, but what?
I don't know. A reason to care?
To attempt to leap. We have to stop them.
We're approaching the end of the story now. I know, with the no time left mission.
Callus encroaches upon the Veil. The activation of the radial mast is imminent.
If the Veil is compromised, the Imuna will fall. Then all of Sol will follow.
Strand will be our edge against Callus. The Guardian is ready to wield it. I think.
In order to get past suppression fields, you must use Strand to destroy them.
Your Strand readings are higher than they've ever been.
Your training's prepared you for this. Strand flows through you as it flows through everything.
Kind of running out of ways to make fun of this, so instead I'll just use this image every time something intensely cringy happens.
Strand flows through you as it flows through everything.
The landing zone's clear. What were these, Terran toys you mentioned?
Something called a drink tank. Looks like fun.
You stole those schematics from my files, didn't you?
Information wants to be free.
Yet another of these unengaging tank sections they insist on inserting into Destiny content to give the illusion of variety. There really is no gameplay to these sections. You're an overpowered turret that can infinitely respawn. The power fantasy and sandbox fun of older Bungie games are night and day compared to these sequences.
Getting delayed. How close are you to the radial mast?
Almost there.
Remember, the radial mast must be stopped before it forges a connection with the Veil.
Cool, I'm glad you reminded me of that one.
If the radial mast links with the Veil, it's all over. You and Rohan are our only hope. You and Rohan are our only hope.
The radial mast! It's activating! I'll buy you some time, Lightbearer.
Be careful, Rohan. Even you can only deter it for so long. There must be a way to destroy it.
Guardian, as long as I can hold the line, the radial mast can't create the link.
Quick boss fight, then back to the humor.
Give me some time to expose its weak point. When I give you the signal, use your strand. Now's the time! Lightbearer! Destroy it now!
We can't.
Then I have no choice. Nimbus, see you on the other side.
Rohan, what are you doing?
Rohan.
He chose a Cloud Strider's end.
Gamers and nerds, man, we love a noble sacrifice. So many great stories include one as a way to escalate the conflict, hammer home the stakes, and change the established character dynamics. Other stories try it and it doesn't quite work out or leaves you asking more questions. This is more one of those. You can't sacrifice a character we've just met, who only has relations to another character we also only just met, and expect us to be invested in this sacrifice.
My witness, there have been complication. Our hold over the veil has been temporarily loosened.
Another uninteresting cutscene with the mustache twirlers pontificating about the veil and how they need their hands on it. I don't really understand why the witness can't handle this themselves with how powerful and unstoppable we've already seen it to be, but I guess this filler had to happen to fill an expansion's worth of content, so here we are.
We need to get Neomuna's defenses working again. I've got reports of Shadow Legion attempting to get up close and personal with the VexNet. I have absolutely no idea why, apart from the breathtaking views this time of axial tilt. But we're not waiting around to find out. That sounds like a good plan, right? It's what he would have... No, that doesn't matter. You and I are gonna see this through. Ready when you are.
Next, you have to play the one new strike added with this expansion, which mostly consists of reused assets from Curse of Osiris and imagery and enemies we've all seen before. This is perhaps one of the least exciting strikes they've ever designed.
Hey, Guardian! I hope you're feeling a little more confident with Strand. Sure sounds like Osiris is. Earlier I asked him how things were going with the green strings, just to mess with him. But after correcting me, he started explaining more of his theories. In great detail, and a lot of proper nouns got thrown around.
What? You do not get to joke about the misuse of proper nouns. Are you kidding me? The penultimate mission is Headlong, a strangely placed and paced level that mostly boils down to a Titanfall-esque time trial sequence that in any other game would be a tutorial or side mission, but because Destiny is so lost in its own source, this is somehow the build-up to the end of the campaign that is supposed to begin the end of the Light and Dark saga.
Systems are late, with 80% of defenses now operational. I'm full of fury, she's got an army, and you got magic green strings. Let's crush this callous guy.
Oh my god, shut up. An incredibly corny 80s training montage starts things off. It can't figure out if it wants to be funny, cool, inspiring, glitchy? You spend 10 minutes traveling to get to the training ground with a puzzle that involves you killing harpies in a certain order. Then you wind up inside Osiris's training program. A platforming puzzle that's supposed to test your proficiency with Social Strand. The final boss room is okay in premise, another large circular room with a rotating electric wall that hurts you if you touch it, so you're incentivized to keep moving. However, the big electric wall hitbox is unreliable and unfair, and especially on Legendary, this encounter is absolutely maddening in the worst way possible. I thought the addition of the Legendary campaign was a great inclusion in the Witch Queen, and all of my memories of playing through it were tough but fair. I never felt like I was hitting my head against a brick wall. I made the mistake of playing through Lightfall on Legendary first, expecting it to be more like Witch Queen. But this Strand tutorial nature of the design makes it needlessly infuriating and punishing in ways that simply aren't fun, which basically led to me resorting to using a pretty overpowered exotic weapon to cheese my way through most of the harder sections, which I didn't even feel the need to do in Witch Queen. Let's wrap this up with the one good mission in this awful campaign.
Guardian, all of our training, all of our losses, it's brought us to this moment. We must stop Kallus from reaching the Veil and establishing a link to the Traveler.
Final stand, baby!
It feels like every mission has the exact same objective, but this is the only one where something advances or changes. After running through the same environment you've already traversed countless times, you wind up platforming up a building in order to take out a couple of anti-air guns, and finally wind up in a combat arena with some fun gimmicks. There are a couple of friendly turrets you need to defend, and even get to use the Hammer of Dawn to take out some tanks.
Shadow Legion cowards, this is Empress Kayato, the true sovereign of the Cabal. You've chosen to ally yourself with a gutless traitor worshipping a false god.
Despite the jankiness, it's a simple wave-based tower defense style setup, but combined with the enemy density and the fact you get to fight side by side with a character you know, is a small glimpse at the potential this game once had. It's so confusing to me why this game does not have some kind of horde or roguelike replayable wave-based mode to keep things varied. The baseline gameplay would suit it so well, but it's a little late at this point. It's a shame that interactive sandbox elements were completely abandoned over the years. The unpredictable AI fights and interactions were what lured me to Bungie's game design in the first place.
Alice? What is...
Guardian! Kaido! Are you okay?
The Veil's exposed. Keep them away from it, at all costs. Leave the Emperor to me.
According to Neomuni lore, the Veil is deep beneath the ground. Like, way deep. Whatever you find in there, just keep going downward.
We're keeping an eye on the surface. Kaido's holding off Callus for now, but she's outnumbered.
That must be the Veil. It's massive. I feel a little strange. Don't know how to describe it. It almost gives me the same feeling as the Traveler. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
You'd imagine that now would be the time to drop some exposition about what the Veil is, now we've reached it and seen it, but I don't even believe Bungie knows what it is. Could it be a massive cosmic fungus? Buy the season pass and you sort of maybe might find out if we get round to it.
I held them off as long as I could. Callus is coming for you. It's in your hands now, Guardian. Give him the end he deserves.
It's a shame the lead villain's daughter couldn't be here for us killing him. That would be some innate drama, wouldn't it? Well, here's the final encounter. Callus whips out a chain gun and you run in circles around him until you whittle his health down, and the arena shifts into a close-up melee fight with him. It's an okay boss as far as Destiny is concerned. I'm just kind of questioning how or why we got here.
Kaido, we've done it. Callus is no more.
You gave him a Cabal's end. I'll believe it when I see it for myself.
Hey, do you guys feel that?
No clue what you're talking about. We're almost at the Veil. Hang tight.
The following cutscene is so badly communicated that I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happens. Nimbus and Keitel show up, and Nimbus shows his respects for her recently deceased father with a fist bump.
Right? No? Come on.
Followed by your ghost being possessed by the Witness and making a huge beam shoot all the way to the Traveler. Luckily, Nimrod saves your ghost, but for whatever reason, that means we lost.
What? What just happened?
We just lost.
Zavala, come in.
The final cutscene is a pre-rendered return to the setting of the opening of this expansion, where the Witness is shown to cut a triangle in the Traveler and go inside it with its ships, followed by it cutting to black. The theory here is that the beginning and closing cutscenes were originally one, likely being the real opening cutscene to whatever the original Lightfall concept was supposed to be. You can test this by stitching the beginning and ending cutscenes together, as they flow into each other seamlessly without pause or disconnect. What this means is that every single thing that happens in this campaign is entirely inconsequential and has no effect on anything, making this the most pointless, waste of time expansion they have ever released. For a company that's all about velocity, they have completely lost every inch of goodwill and momentum they've been building for years prior. It's simply not good enough for the game to be in this state so close to the end. With Lightfall also being the most expensive expansion released to date, with the following seasons also being price hiked and only available to purchase with awkward amounts of silver that force you to buy more than you need, even even for Destiny, this is an unprecedented mess the community should not forgive them for. The quality of this expansion is shocking and kind of a slap in the face to those who've been paying attention. Like every other product going right now, you're paying for more and getting less. I defended this concept within reason in the Witch Queen video, using the quality of the campaign to offload the lack of expansion in other areas, but what do we have here? A terrible campaign, the worst location ever added to the game, characters so bad they're actively unfitting and irritating to interact with in here, one strike, which is one of the most dull they've ever made, no new PvP or Gambit maps, one new raid, with the best part being an admittedly fun new subclass. This might be the worst deal in Destiny history, and that's saying something. Luckily, I'm not alone this time, with mostly negative reviews on Steam, with the highest rated review on PS5 saying, "While the story has holes, I'm excited to learn how Bungie fills them in over the following year and on." Listen to the cope, the Stockholm Syndrome. Even IGN gave it a 6 out of 10, which might as well be a 1 out of 10, let's be real. The frantic changes after the backlash, like bumping up the release of exotic quests and making more strand customization available sooner, did little to change the tide. Although I will note how hilarious it is that they're trying to retcon the original ending of vanilla Destiny to make sense within the new context of the Neo Mooney and Veil.
I'm sure they were merely told to destroy the Black Heart's architect. I doubt they were aware its knowledge is the true threat.
You really think this blueprint will help us with the Veil? After all, if the Black Heart was meant to be a copy of the Veil, it didn't exactly succeed.
True.
Many similarly observed that the season accompanying Lightfall probably had a better story. They still attempt epic moments that fall comically flat on their face. This scene is so bad. Why would you care about this?
That's all that matters.
The more I experiment with the seasonal model, the more trite and restrictive it becomes. But seeing as Bungie doesn't care about quality anymore, with the only metric of importance being engagement, like it's f***ing TikTok, let's look at the Steam numbers. Unfortunately, the marketing and lies must have paid off because the month of Lightfall's release marks the biggest month for Destiny on Steam in its entire history, plummeting less than half by April with small bumps when seasons release. Unfortunately, I don't think this means anything would change. The numbers aren't dire enough for them to deliver something promising, only the bare minimum. Outside of the expansion, there were multiple tweaks and quality of life changes, like the atrocious and pointless Guardian rank and commendation system, or finally giving you the abilities to make loadouts that still aren't nearly as good as Destiny Item Manager. I guess it will all work properly in a few years. Let's just give them time. They just need a bit of time to make their game. They just need a few more years. Give them 10 more years. Go on then. The weapon balancing changes so often it's pointless to mention in my videos, but the biggest quirk I did notice at the time was how weak the primary weapons felt. So I shifted my build to favor my exotic machine gun, which melts everything almost a little too easily. Outside of the new raid weapons and the new exotics, there's not a single new weapon to reinvigorate the sandbox that isn't a reskin. A suite of legendary weapons used in marketing and even present in the imagery used as the background for missions were not in the game either. With how well the expansion sold and how high engagement still is, the fact of the matter is the quality really doesn't matter. By the time the final shape rolls around, the Destiny goldfish will be deeply rooted back in the hype cycle. This toxic business model is so predatory and anti-consumer, but it's already lost. This is just what the game is now. It didn't have to be this way, it didn't used to be this bad, but greed always wins. There's a final shape teaser showing Cade 6 will be returning in some form, confirming that even all of these years later, Cade 6 is still the only thing this franchise has to leverage. Kill him off when the game is in a bad state, bring him back when the game is in a bad state. It's honestly shameless what Bungie have done over this cycle of releases. Personally, I don't know why anyone would care about the release of their new game Marathon, supposedly a PvP-only extraction shooter loosely based on the bones of their classic single-player franchise. With how well they've supported the PvP in Destiny 2, I'm sure it's going to be great. The only reason I was initially excited for Destiny back in 2014 was because of the history and goodwill they had built up over time with Halo. A history and goodwill that is now totally spent. They are a ghost shell of their former selves, abandoning their motto of making games they want to play for this embarrassing anime-sounding corporate we make games that forge friendships thing.
Because we took down that motto a little while after D2 launch as we evolved our view of what success really meant. And our new studio motto, this is a more recent picture, is we create worlds that inspire friendship.
A totally meaningless statement of intent that communicates nothing. Is that a f***ing ice cream truck? Get out of here. I truly think the success of this game has been awful for the industry at large, and with Sony purchasing them outright and banking on them to steer the future live service games in a similar direction, it's looking to be a sad future for this space. Come on guys, stop over-delivering. Make your games worse. People will pay for you to make it, as it goes. The truth is, there was a groundswell of creativity and originality in the AAA space in the early 2000s because no one quite yet understood the potential of how much money games could actually make. Look at how much money Fortnite makes. Actually look at the numbers. This is ridiculous. This is more money than some entire countries make. In a way, I'm glad we're so close to the end. The final shape will be a lot of people's time to say goodbye to this franchise. I can only hope the sunken cost fallacy is the only thing leading a whipped community of fans to the same point. I only got this far because of these videos, and I nearly quit a couple times. I don't understand why anyone would have stuck through it this long without an incentive like that. Just thinking about the money required to play the franchise to its potential from beginning to end is eye-watering. The onboarding is worse than ever with countless packs and predatory engagement decisions. The price continues to go up while the overall amount of content goes down. The story is so bad the biggest lore guy can make multiple significant videos complaining about its state. The microtransactions are so bad that big channels like Aztec Cross can upload a 35-minute video about how extreme the monetization has become, fully explaining how the game has become a pay-to-win nightmare that I would recommend watching.
All you need to do is spin some silver, and just like that, you have enough deep sight to instantly craft any weapon you like. Sure, you have to get it to actually drop, but that's not a problem when you can focus all the seasons.
So, just so I understand, you can expedite getting these pieces of gear by buying levels of your battle pass that will give you the items that allow you to craft these things that give you god rolls for your weapons. Guys, I think that's kind of bad.
The most committed PvP players, who have got about one new map in 4 years, by the way, are experiencing issues so bad that I don't know why they would even bother to play.
I have beamed the rest. The rest wasn't even able to move.
Next time, my friend. Next time.
What? Hello?
What? All these lessons to the next fight. I know it. I look forward to that.
Bungie? What? What do you mean?
It is still a community suggestion to lock the frame rate at 30 because of the bizarre bug that changes the damage output of enemies based on the FPS you run the game at. And ever since Lightfall dropped, the game has had significant issues every single week, needing to go down for large chunks of time, servers shitting themselves, hackers and cheaters galore. Aside from funneling money into developing Marathon, what on earth are they actually doing over there? The community has given them an inch and they've taken a few 100 million miles. Things appear to change, but the flavor is always the same. This is a company with over 1,500 employees, a market evaluation of $3.6 billion, hundreds of millions in turnover. They do not care about you. The game is not designed for enjoyment, but instead is simply designed to be played a lot, fixating on generating revenue instead of generating fun, and my god is it obvious. Every single pillar of the game is suffering, and what do the community have to show for it? It's no coincidence that the game released the best content it has ever seen shortly following the lowest engagement and most critical points in its history. The Taken King after the disastrous vanilla, and Forsaken after the disastrous Destiny 2 vanilla. It's all about the numbers, and the numbers aren't quite low enough for anything to change. There's nothing quite like Destiny on the market, so Bungie can continue to do whatever they want. The protesting fans are built into the business model at this point. To me, this Skinner box has been out of treats for a long time now. Everyone in the AAA industry was so occupied trying to be the Destiny killer, the Destiny copier. Yeah, we're gonna be Destiny. We're gonna be Destiny and even better. When all along, Destiny was always the one destined to kill Destiny. The live service idea is inherently unsustainable with this type of design, and I feel no sympathy for the mess they've created for themselves. When the final shape winds up being yet another collection of reused assets being sold back to us as nostalgia, don't say I didn't warn you.